Good day, friends. This, as all the other ones, is a voice-only video because a face is just a distraction. First of all, thank you for being here. Your presence is very much appreciated. If the content will be of your liking, please consider giving us a like and subscribing. Today, I am asking to let me help you become a better negotiator. We negotiate far more than we are aware of, meaning that everything in life involves some sort of exchange, quid pro quo, something for something else. So I feel that I can try to share my knowledge as a negotiator and see if I can be of assistance. Let's specify that the result of a good economic, because we're talking about an economic negotiation, or the success of a good economic negotiator, is when you acquire what was the object of your negotiation at the price that you deemed correct. You are also a good negotiator if you get up and leave the table for lack of conditions to strike a satisfactory deal. It is best to get up and leave and maybe come back sometime later down the line and get a better deal than settling for a mediocre deal today. These are a few lines to help anyone become a better negotiator. Negotiation is an interaction between willing counterparts. You'll hear this often. Let's make it clear that we negotiate for what we want, not for what we need. If you need what you are negotiating for, it is a sale, not a negotiation, because you will be taken for a ride. If I know that you need something, we're only deciding on the price at which I will give it to you, not if we will strike a deal. That said, two conditions need to be met. The two golden rules of negotiating. The first is that you have to set your limit, be it a price or whatever we're negotiating for. You need to know the limits you are willing to take yourself to. And in the heat of the moment, you need not move from what you have established to be your limit. And the second condition is that you must, and it's in capital letters, you must be willing to get up and leave the negotiation table at any point in time. If either of these conditions cannot be met, don't get into a negotiation, because it will not be a negotiation. It'll be a massacre. And if you're so unlucky that your counterpart senses you're not going to be able to abide by the two golden rules, they will have your behind for breakfast. It would also be wise to negotiate with a very clear understanding of who your counterpart is and a rough idea of their wealth. It's like sitting at a mismatched poker table. You will never be able to counteroffer anything if it's out of your league. Meaning that if the financial possibilities and the means are very mismatched, you have to stick to your golden rule even more closely, because your counterpart will not have to be as careful as you with their money. Mind you that these rules are not like sculpted in stone for the hell of it. These rules are there to protect you from yourself. The explanation is if I know or if I sense, and I will ask questions to try to find out that you haven't set a limit, I know I can play you like a child. Or if I sense that you really want what we are negotiating for, and I realize that you're not willing to give up on the negotiation, I will take you for a ride to exactly the place that I want you to be. Don't enter negotiation if you're not sure you can meet the two golden rules. Stay home. Forget it. The maximum monetary spending and the willingness to get up and leave without a deal must be your mantra. If you are emotional or really want the object of the negotiation, pay someone else to negotiate on your behalf. It'll be way cheaper. Pay a professional who has no stakes in the negotiation, or make sure you have the emotional endurance not to cave in. If you're not sure you have the stamina, don't sit at that table. You have to learn to estrange yourself from the object of the negotiations and concentrate on the negotiating process. Let me run that by you again. You have to learn to estrange yourself from the object of the negotiations and concentrate on the negotiation process. Keep your emotions in check and never forget that we're here to get a job done. Don't get carried in conversations. Keep the eye on the money. If you sense that your emotions are getting the best of you, please excuse yourself and leave the negotiating table. Because any emotional involvement is a negotiating burden. If you can remove your emotional connection from the transaction, you will leave your counterpart to be the only one emotionally involved. And we want counterparts to be emotionally involved. You can also try to put indirect pressure on your counterpart with a simple trick. Always take a notepad and writing material into any negotiation and start taking notes. Never show what you're writing, but keep taking notes. At worst, scribble words, because a person in front of you that is taking notes gains instant respect and seems more competent. And we want that. Writing intimidates, and we want to intimidate our counterpart. If you are outnumbered at a negotiating table, and it's quite common that your counterpart will try to do that, please occupy as much table space as possible. Spread out your writing materials, remove your watch and put it on your table. Take your phone and put it on the other side. Spread everything out. Spread your arms. Open up. You need to become bigger than life figure. Don't let their tactics crush you. Crush back. Because you need to be emotionally in the same space as your counterpart. Let's make it clear. Negotiating is not an art. Negotiating is a process with set rules. He who knows the process best and religiously sticks to the plan will be the best negotiator. Negotiation is never a question of talent, but solely of discipline. Of course, talented individuals might use the procedures to their advantage. You need to draft a proper action plan and then execute flawlessly, down to the last comma. Mind you that the correct price that you set for yourself has to be around the lowest possible price that your counterpart you think will be willing to accept if you're buying, and the highest possible that your counterpart you believe will be willing to pay if you're selling. Any price that is too far off is both an insult and wishful thinking. A few words on bargaining. Bargaining, if it is inevitable, has to be conducted scientifically and emotionlessly. Be the first to put out a number. Then let the anchoring principle do the work for you. For example, you're trying to profit as much as you can from the sale of your services. Speaking first has the advantage of setting the framework, the playing field. If your first request is 100, the other person cannot comfortably reply with a 7. The bargaining area should result in being in the zone somewhere around and above 50. If, on the other side, you let your counterpart speak first and they offer the famous 7, it will be a nightmare to counter with 100. The distance is way too far. You can do it, obviously, but you will create a lot of tension. And tension puts people on the edge of their seats and it fosters suspicion. And tension in negotiation is never good. We need you to be Mr. Nice Guy. Always the nicest person in the room. To their 7, you will have to counter, let's say, a figure in the area of the high 40s, with a striking point situated likely somewhere between 18 and 33. So to sum it up, you went from a tentative high 50s to somewhere in the high 20s. You royally screwed up. You gave away tons of profit. Lack of knowledge of the most basic rules will always cost you money. So learn and learn fast. Remember that negotiating is never a personality contest. Never humiliate. You are here to execute your plan and obtain your goal, not rub it in. Please beware of letting your ego sit at the negotiating table. Forget your ego, but stroke the ego of your counterpart. Always be courteous. Be nice. This will bring you a positive bias. The person in front of you will like you more than they will dislike you, and you can profit from their liking you. When negotiating, never be aggressive, but always be the most resolute, unrelenting, nicest person. Because being tough is not about being rude. Being a jerk and aggressive will automatically convey your insecurities. If you got macho issues, resolve them before you enter negotiation. As a shrewd negotiator, will use your need to be the alpha against you. That will either get you taken advantage of, or it will make the meeting go sour. By the same token, remember to create healthy boundaries, because familiarity breeds contempt. Let's joke, but we're here to conduct business. Let's not get too close. Savvy and courteous. If you ask your counterpart if they're willing to negotiate, to accept an offer and find an agreement, you will get one of two answers. If you get a no for an answer, you can leave now and you saved a ton of money. We want to engage with willing partners and not have to wrestle with ungrateful, obnoxious parties. Negotiation is an interaction between willing counterparts. If they say yes, you have opened all doors in front of you because the counterpart has shown a willingness to find a deal. Your job is to see where that strike point is. From this point on, it's not a question if we will find an agreement, but when we will strike one and at which conditions. Once you have nailed the price that you can all agree on, you can start offering advantages to your counterpart to obtain further financial advantages for you. That means don't lay out all your conditions beforehand. Strike a deal and then offer immediate payment in exchange for a discount, commitment to buying a larger volume for a cheaper unit price, offer the willingness to accept delayed deliveries in exchange for rebates, and so on and so forth. Let's now evaluate the importance of silence and taking your time while negotiating. When you are negotiating, never rush. For example, imagine that entering a room is the goal. Don't rush in. Don't barge through the door and take up all the space, unless that was our strategy, obviously. At best, it will ruffle some feathers. Don't rush, please. Try to get your foot in the door. If the foot is in the door, the whole body will eventually follow. Take your time. One of the most important rules is that the silence is golden. Speak as little as you can, because people are generally afraid of silence. And we have to use that tool as much as we can. Therefore, if you're a talkative, emotional negotiator, bite your tongue. Because you will eventually say something that will either cost us money or will cost you your word. In any case, nothing good ever comes from an emotionally talkative negotiator. Again, be a nice guy, but never feel compelled to fill the silences. He who speaks too much loses. Many people feel awkward in a silent ambient. If you see that your counterpart struggles with silence, grill them slowly and wait until they're compelled to end that silence. They might, and they probably will, unwillingly reveal very useful information that you might have not have gotten otherwise. To conclude, You might, but this is not a guarantee, but you just might get what you ask for. But you will definitely never get what you don't ask for. When you negotiate, you need to ask. But not all deals are meant to be. Not all counterparts are willing to find an agreement. You will have to recognize this possibility as soon as possible to avoid wasting time, overpaying, or having to deal with a disgruntled counterpart who feels cheated. If you leave quickly enough, you might not jeopardize future attempts at negotiating the same issue. It can be that the best outcome available today is no outcome. Just a little disclaimer, if you can blackmail or twist your counterpart's arm, it is something different and we don't call it negotiating. Negotiating is an interaction between free-willed individuals. When you're done, make sure that you put in writing what you have agreed upon. In case you had to make a concession, match that with the request from you. If you concede, you must obtain in return. And lastly, never ask why in a negotiation, because that will make people defensive. A defensive counterpart is the worst counterpart. We want the happy counterpart. Let it be clear, after all these words, that there is absolutely no shortcut to proper preparation. But you need to always be the immovable, relentless, nicest guy. This will lower the guard of your counterpart, and you have to allow your counterpart to always feel in control. You don't need to feel in control because you know you are in control if you're following the plan. Lastly, don't beg or haggle. Keep your dignity, please. At the end of a negotiation, if you did not get what you wanted, make sure that you tell your counterpart that he was obviously powerless in that transaction, that there was nothing that he could do to make it happen. And watch that do wonders. Peace. This is motivation and inspiration in the dark, and that is all I have for you today. Thank you. If you appreciate this channel, please consider pressing the like button, subscribing, and maybe sharing with a friend.